Our next presenter, Raqib Omer, who tried to give himself a little lead in right here with a question. He's our favorite, one of our favorites, now that Joel's here, researchers from Ontario. He's a founder and CEO of Viaesys, and he spearheads research in system design with management of a talented and highly motivated team. And we've worked with Raqib for 6 years or so, and we respect and know how important his work is. However, we didn't realize how essential he was, since he was actually able to cross the border and come down for this presentation. So clearly he is an essential member of our team. I'd like to invite him, as well as folks from the town of Hague and the town of Lake George Highway Departments.
Yep. Thanks, Chris, and thank you everyone for being able to make it both in person and online. So this is, for a change, I'm not going to present this year. I'm going to have everyone who's been working so hard to actually get where we are today and show you those declining trends, to actually come in and share what is it that they did to get where they're at, and where is it that they're heading. What are the issues, what are the problems, where are the opportunities, and where is it that we need that leap of faith in order to continue to see those graphs go in the right direction. I'm going to start with the town of Hague. My good friend Tim is going to try and stick to 20 minutes. That may not happen, but he's going to talk a little bit about their journey in terms of how they got from using close to 1,800, 2,000 tons a year to 500 tons this last year. So he's going to talk about that, and then we'll move on to the town of Lake George. Very, very committed to doing things right and doing things cutting edge. And we've got some very exciting updates for you there as well. So Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim Fiallo. I represent the town of Hague, along with Matt Coffin. We want to start off by saying thank you. We're going to say thank you to our leaders. We're going to say thank you to our town supervisor and our highway superintendent for giving us the freedom to take on something that was challenging. We'd also love to thank Eric Sy from the fund, the now new LGA, Phil Sexton for his swim management system, Raqib from Viaesys, the town of Lake George, and our grandfather, Mr. Rob V. I'm going to steal a quote from him. Our sweat is your equity. And none of this would have ever worked without all these things put together into a process, a learning curve that takes time. It took us 5 years to hit our first sustainability level. And we're at that point. We're ready to take it to the next level. And with this introduction, we're going to show you how we're going to take it to the next level by the end. With that said.
So I'd like to add, so this was not a part of the presentation. This is not a set of politically correct thank yous that he has to do. This is, straight from the heart, because there is a lot that goes into this, and there is, the freedom and the trust and the faith that everybody's had in this team was very, very important for these guys to get where they are.
Also the Darien Institute, shame on me, for giving us the data. Again, my apologies.
So, there is more meat on the bones, and you've looked at some of this in the past. So I'll let Tim explain what they were doing with salt 4, 5, 6 years ago when we started, and where they are at now, and how did they get there. We've got a few slides on that.
So as you can see with the totals on the right-hand side, I'm really not going to go into the flow because it was already explained 3 times, but there is a decrease. And we feel that's a huge part of what we're doing. We're contributing to the ecosystem and the damage that's already been done, and we're trying to correct it. So we're going to start off with simplicity. We have our first year there where we were averaging 1,600 tons a year running our operation. And we were introduced with live edge plows, and we were talking about tracking systems and controlling systems. We played with it, we've seen the difference while we were out there operating, and it kind of turned into a game for us in-house. We challenged each other every day. We called Rob, we called Phil, we called everybody in the middle of the night. This is what we're learning, this is what we're doing. Into our second season, we'd come across, we're still maintaining the same level, but we're starting to see the reduction. And over that time of saving that reduction, we're realizing how much salt we were wasting. We started controlling our bounce. We started controlling our pounds per lane mile. We started understanding the science, and we started tying in the liquids, buying liquids for pre-treating and so on and so forth. Into our third year, when we got down to 1,300 pounds, or 1,300 tons in purchases, we realized that this is working. All of this is working, and it's all working because we're all working together. And it's imperative to learn more. So then we started reaching out to the Darien Institute. We need to see your levels. We started going visiting other towns and so on and so forth. And we started getting involved with more liquids. We were realizing that the liquids were working, when to use them, when not to use. And this was just as we were just working on the granular. When we got into our fourth season, we wanted to go full liquid. Unfortunately, trucks break down. You have to reinvest your money. So what we did is we reinvested that money into our technologies that we use, our tracking systems, our control setting, our control trackers, control monitors, and camera systems. Into our fifth year, we had so much salt reserved and maintaining that high budget, and we were using the extra money to put it back in. We have saved enough salt for the next 2 seasons if we can continue to run at this operation. We've operated in 34 weather events that I could remember tracking over this past season. And by using liquids and cutting back on the granular, understanding the science, keeping it simple, and rebuilding small pumps and just diving right into it. Virtual phone calls, 11 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, Matt and I bouncing each other off each other, arguing, saying how it's not going to work, but then putting together a plan before we rolled out in the morning. We achieved the impossible. We only purchased 550 tons of salt. 50 tons of that salt made us 40,000 gallons of brine, because we started learning how to make our own brine. And let alone, I hate to cut other people out, but when we started making it in-house, it just further, it pushed us to go further, and we'll explain that at the end.
So I just wanted to add something very quick here. So 6-7 years ago when we started this process, this is the same group. When I would go in and say there's potential to save salt, the first question they would do is ask my age. And the second comment would be, well, I've been plowing these roads since before you were born. Mm-hmm. Not once, not twice, every single time. I'm pretty sure there are people in this room who've said this to me, without taking any names. And quite frankly, it's a different recipe for everyone. It's a different set of motivations. It's a different set of constraints. So it's not an on and off switch. You cannot purchase a bunch of equipment and pay for your staff to be trained a certain way and expect numbers to start declining. It's a process. It takes time. And this is that. From 1,600 tons to, say, what, 30% of the original value, or 1/3. This is quite amazing. But it was not like that when we started. It was always like, how old are you? And then,
We didn't even include the fact that we haven't used sand in 3 years. This is our 4th season.
We switch in 17, 18. That's the 2 years from 17 to 18. That's
Yes.
the year we switched from running sand salt mix to an all salt program,
Yes.
and it worked.
when I said we might have trouble sticking to the 20 minutes, this is what I meant. But this is all productive stuff. So.
This is how it's worked for us.
So a little bit about the process. I'd like to have Tim talk about. So, well, say for example, if somebody wants to get into this today, what does it take? I mean, there is a process involved. It's not an on and off switch. So, like Tim said, 2016, when we first went in, there was some motivation to do better, but there was no visibility. So we first off started with tracking. We started with tracking. What is it? So you can't really improve what you can't track. So we started with tracking, and we started with, well, okay, let's just give you a visual on what is it that you're doing on a per event basis so that we've got something to improve. Is that right, Tim?
That's correct. Every year that we met with Raqib, we got even more excited. I'm like, Raqib, you got to see the numbers. You have to see our application rates. And he goes, wait. He slows us down. He goes, I've got more, but I don't want to give you too much. He goes, because he wanted us to grasp the process. And as we grasped it, and he brought in the newer technologies, and as we moved along, we were able to see more. So it made us more visionary. If you have one guy in your entire highway department that's enthusiastic about it, give that one person the freedom to run with it, because he's the guy who's going to absorb it. And he's the guy who's going to take it, and he's going to learn it to the best of his ability, and he's going to want to make that change. Fortunate for us, we had two guys. That was myself and Mr. Matt Coffin. We questioned everything. We questioned each other. We fought back and forth, and we always went back to our grandfather, Mr. Robbie V. from the town of Lake George. Moving forward.
Bit of a process. You first need to know what you're doing, and then you need to sort of, eat the elephant one bite at a time. Look at your lowest hanging fruit. These guys were doing 400 pounds per lane mile when we started. Nobody admitted, but that's what they were doing. We showed them the numbers, and then slowly, it kept coming down. We added the cameras so that they could see that, 400 versus 200, those road conditions are the same. So we're not compromising safety. We're not compromising mobility. And then slowly introduce them to new equipment, the live edge plows, the ability to do liquid, both as pre-wet and DLA. So it's an incremental process, it's a learning process, and it's not going to be the same for everyone. No. So, we're building this wealth of knowledge that we can share with others, but everyone's going to have to come up with their own slightly different recipe. So, as a result of the faith that these guys had in themselves and everybody else had in them and what we're doing, some desired and sort of unintended consequences came in. So I let Tim talk a little bit about that as well.
So sharing knowledge is important. The first three bullets you see right there, the liquids, the live edge plows, the calibration, that all comes into hand, and yes, that does contribute to the effects of how this whole process works. When we were gaining all our information, we turned it into an education program. Again, and this is due to the freedoms of the supervisors and the superintendents, allowing Matt Coffin, Rob Vopleu, and myself going out to other towns, other small municipalities, other counties. We assisted Warren County, helping with their calibration. So this way they were able to understand it. We spent a full day down there. We went out to meet with Ron from Lake Luzerne. He was curious because his supervisor spoke with our supervisor. So it's a shared services. So we're using this like a shared services. We've been up to Ticonderoga. We've taught them how to make brine in their own shop. The one you got to watch out for is Stony Creek. They want to do it better than Hague. These guys, within one visit, built their own boom truck. They bought a brine maker, and these guys are so much. They grasp it, and they're not in the Lake George Basin. They're not in the available funding that they can get. But these guys get it because they had two guys that understood it, and they had the passion, and Neil let them run with it, and it's phenomenal. Even Ron from Lake Luzerne can tell you, he's cut back on his salt and sand by 50%, he feels already. So it's working, and it's all due to the combination of things. It's a combination of live edge plows, the pre-treating, the liquids, and understanding the science behind how it works. So when you can use your standards that we pass along, that we talk about all the time with when to use liquids, when not to. If you're going into a storm after storm, and we've already laid out, we call it a one and done at the end of the night. We do our patrol in the morning. That guy's going to determine whether he's going to bring people in for the next storm that's coming in, or if there's enough residual salt that's left down on the ground where you don't have to pre-treat. So you don't have to pre-treat all the time. As you start learning the science behind it, you can pretty much calculate look on your screens and your monitors that was shown to us and take it to the next level. Your employees are going to worry about losing their overtime or it's cutbacks, it's a way to take away money. But you do your patrols. You do a patrol before the storm, during the storm, after the storm. So everybody still get their chance. And the money that you save, you put right back into your highway department. Keep that same budget for 5 years and run it like a business. Okay, I'm making it, but I'm spending it, and I'm putting it on this, and I'm putting it on that. And it's working, and starting to show in other towns. We visited 3 or 4 different towns together in 2 or 3 counties. Education, knowledge, keeping it simple. Matt Coffin. You use this much salt, you get this much slush. And you're not allowing the snow to absorb that granular base. And when you go back out, you're scraping it right off. You're wasting your product. You use this much salt, you prevent that bond, you get that much slush, you get more traction, you eliminate your snowpack, and you're able to scrape off what's ever left on the roads with these live edge plows. The initiative of what's next. We started with, we call it the dinosaur of our liquids. Our liquids, after understanding the granular, our liquids was bringing in more success. We were able to hit our sustainability last year. The result is watching our rates, our temperature gauges. We got to understand when our freezing points were, what dew points to use, when to use a pre-wet system versus using the dry system. And from talking to other counties, we're like, we put nothing down when it hits below 10 degrees. They're right, because your climate's going to be different than ours. But we deal with a rolling climate where, it'll be cold on the mountaintops and warm in the basin, and then it flips. So now we got to switch our practices. So you're becoming your own weatherman. Our in-house systems, cost and effective. We picked this brine maker up, I think, for $5,000 then, and then we started tweaking it. As you can see, there's calibration that was involved. We're going around town to town teaching how to do a 2-minute catch test. Then we learned about PSIs. So we put a static PSI on it. We knew to bump it up to 42 at a 2-minute spray nozzle. We knew at 15 miles an hour, we were putting it down at 42 gallons a minute, and it was spot on. We kept data collection sheets. We designed our own sheets on mileage, start and stop time, how fast we were going. So this way we could be just as accurate as any other computer. Mm-hmm. That's bringing us forth.
Right.
Into.
So in summary, this is a sub $10,000 investment so far, and what the town of Hague is essentially looking to do is find out what they don't know with the uncertainties, and get into liquids a little bit more without actually having to spend the money that's needed. So baby steps. I love showing this picture. You want to talk about it?
All right. So how the liquids are working and what we were finding out versus granular or waiting for the sheriff to call you to get out. These are 2 great examples. You have a pre-treated road on the top 2 slides. One hasn't been touched, the bottom slide, or has been touched and one hasn't been. So you get those little freak snowstorms that come in, and if there is that pre-treat level to prevent that bonding, it's less work to roll out 5 trucks for everybody to go see their routes, as opposed to running 1 patrol truck or even looking at your cameras, because you could see how the liquids are working faster than waiting to go out and then hit it with granular. You look at them bottom pictures, you already know cars are driving over it, they're already packing it down, and you're already creating that bonding effect. By using these liquids, they're enabling you to get time to get out. Using the technology, it allows you to see what you're doing, and then you could attack your storms in a timely manner. There's no more waiting for the phone call, waiting for people to get into accidents. Our plan this year is to go liquid route only. We're going to take 1 secondary route, and we're going to get to know liquids better than we knew granular. Our granular base was a huge learning curve, but helped us to understand how we were going to learn to operate with the liquids. We are going to use up to a 70%, yeah, well, right there it says it. We're going to try to hit another margin. We know when we're using in-house brine and we start dropping the numbers on the granular, we can do the same thing with the liquid, because you're using less chlorides when you're using a liquid versus using a granular state. And when you use the liquids, it's a faster effect. It gets you out in a timely manner. If you're going to go over these roads with these live edge plows, those liquids are going to come over and they're already down. You don't have to worry about the bonding effect happen, and it's going to work immediate, as opposed to waiting for the granular to soak up the moisture from the snow and take the time to get it to relatively melt the snow and ice off. So the liquids run faster. We're going to learn how to tell you when not to use it, how much to use it, at what rate, what speed. Speed variables when it comes to plowing are so important. A lot of guys just want to fly. We found out you're plowing 15 to 18 miles an hour, anything over 20, you're wasting your time, you're burning up your carbides, you're not allowing your equipment to work. You don't have to wait for it. With liquids, you don't have to wait for the time for the material to work. It's going to work instantaneously. We're going to build that knowledge, and we're going to answer the questions next year when we come back here to help others. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to continue to go Warrenton County, Washington County, Hamilton County, Essex County, all the small towns, and we're still going to network, and we're still going to put in, here's Rob's quote, we're going to put in our sweat for your equity, because we are so passionate about this, and it's about driver safety, and it's about the people who are publicly out on the road. You know, we're out there in the middle of the night, and we got that one hill, you all know that freeze point, where you're like, oh no, here we go. Yeah, your adrenaline starts going, I'm just thinking about it, I'm getting antsy, but we're going to perfect it. We're going to know when, we're going to know how, and we're going to be able to, we want to take it to the next step. This program has taught us how to take all this knowledge and not just better road safety, but the environmental impact. We got a chance to see our environmental impact just by seeing the Darien Institute levels in the Hague Brook, which led us to a self-sustainable salt shed. We're a small municipality. This picture is leftover residual salt that in the springtime is the same thing that's happening to your ground soil and your contaminants. We're working along with hybrid solutions. We looked at their buildings, we went around, and we're watching how the water was falling off, and it was a waste. We don't have a well to give us a water source big enough, so we're going to build our own self-sustainable salt shed. Rob, Matt, myself thought down, how can we do this? Well, let's collect the rainwater. We know we get 54 inches of rain a year. If we offer 800,000 roof, we're storing 13,000 gallons of water. Our farm needs to be bigger. So we can catch our own rainwater and design this, and it's going to fall into catch basin tanks coming off the roof systems, and then we're going to contain with hybrid anything that could spill out over and further, and then put in another ground drain system to collect those chlorides. So this way it's not going out and beyond the brook, it's being maintained within the highway department. You could see in this slide, everything runs in one direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in catch basins with ground infiltrators. We found by doing the research and talking with one another, these sponges that are out there that collect these chlorides and these petroleums and the top water contaminants from spreading the damage. Hopefully we get this grant. We're going to do what we can even further. This program's taught us to teach us how to clean up our yard. We're going to catch all them top water contaminants, put it into these ground infiltrators through these sponges that we can use for a heat source, because we heat up our garage with a wood boiler. That's what this program's taught us. And not only does it teach us safety, it's taught us about awareness of the environment and what the damage we're actually doing. Everybody who drives truck in here knows they break a hydraulic line, they got an oil leak, and they're coming into the yard, they're limping. Well, we want to catch that. We want to keep it self-contained. And then we want to be able to take care of those contaminants and not spread it further out into the environment. This program, all these people involved, we can't thank you enough for giving us the incentive to get to this point, because we just want to better ourselves, we want to better public safety, and want to save our environment. And it's huge. It is extremely huge. And we couldn't have done it without the help of all of you. So we thank you.
Tim's excitement and motivation deserves a round of applause, but we're going to wait until the end. So, only 4 minutes over is also a new record for Tim. So I'll give you this.
Thank you. Yeah, my mouth is dry.
Moving swiftly on, Town of Lake George, I've got Rob Lanfear and Rob Vopleu, who are going to be talking about how the town of Lake George is going to continue on its path and be a leader in exactly what they've been doing for the last 5-6 years. Before I let these guys dive in, I'd like to, so what you see on the right here is the town of Lake George earning the swim certification. And what you see on the left is what got them there. So I have a video here of a typical plow route. Red lines is where salt was put down. Gray lines is where salt was not put down. And then we've got little pictures showing exactly what the roads look like over there. So let's have a quick look at this. And so essentially, red lines, salt was applied. Gray lines, salt was not applied. If you look at the gray lines, the roads are bare. If you look at the red lines, the roads were not bare, salt was applied. Same group that told me that the only way to do it is to set it and forget it and also ask my age. Those two gentlemen actually are no longer with the town, but 4 years in, 3 years in, this is Rob's route himself. Everyone is more aware, more educated, more trained to actually keep one hand on the dial and eyes on the road and not set it and forget it. So this here, I think I've used this animation probably over 100 times because every time someone tells me set it and forget it and asks my age, I just play this now. I don't even talk. So with that, I'd like Rob Vopleu to talk a little bit about how did the town of Lake George get there? And we're just going to talk about some basic, no-brainer kind of stuff here. You know, something that everyone should be doing. So first off is calibration. Go ahead.
Well, I don't think this is on. So I'm not going to get a lot into it because Tim, I think I created a monster with that. But I'll just hit some bullet points and then take it over to Rob. Calibration, it's widely misunderstood. We usually do it once a month. I'm able to, by doing that, we know what we're putting down. We like to say, as per that little diagram that Raqib said, we're putting the right material in the right place at the right time. With calibrating, we know we're putting what that number says on the screen is what we're putting down. We also calibrate it, kind of tailor that towards the driver themselves.
Which is huge, really. I mean, if you go out and ask a typical municipality how often they calibrate, the answer is often between 0 and 1. But this time, I mean, they've put together a process where they're calibrating 6 times a season. And they're also tweaking the process to every driver, to every truck, et cetera, et cetera. And your application rates can, at best, be only as accurate as well you've calibrated your piece of equipment. These guys have put together a process, they document their calibrations, and they're now helping others do the same. Yeah, so it's amazing. This is a no-brainer that everybody thinks that they're doing, but oftentimes there's more involved, and I think Rob's probably, you know, if there were such a thing, he should probably have a PhD in calibration, at the very least. The other thing that worked really well for them, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Sure. Another thing with calibration is, as what we've seen is as the season goes by, the moisture in your material changes. So the weight changes. So by calibrating it once a month, we can adjust for those little changes and be more accurate. Another great tool that we have are little live edge plows. We got these 5-6 years ago. We actually had the prototype for years, which the guy that had it, he absolutely loved it. I gave him one of these, and he's like, well, you know. But this is a great tool. It's like giving the road a cleaner shave. It actually contours to the road and allows us to use less material. The more we remove, the less we have to put back on to keep the road at a good friction level. Here we also use road cameras. Rob uses them quite a bit. I use them to know when we have to call guys in, when we can kind of let it sit a little bit longer. Every area, we have microclimates within our town. What it's doing up north, on the north side of town, it might be different than what it's doing down south. And he may have to call a driver in up north and not even touch it down south. They're a great tool. They're also a great tool that we can see level of service as throughout the season. Oh, you guys weren't out and you didn't plow. Well, we have GPS in our trucks. I can go onto a thing and say, yeah, we actually went by your house at such a time. Or Rob can go in really quickly through an app and find out, yeah, the road's been plowed. They went by. And the graph on the bottom here actually shows, what I do is I pull, this is actual a driver performance graph, or this is ideally what we're looking to get. Through years of training, we want to see that trend. We don't want to see that set it and forget it. We want to see them varying the rate, putting the material where the material needs to be. You know, we want our drivers to think, to see and learn as they do it. The guy coming in, you know, even talking with our seasoned veteran, or the guy that's been plowing for 30 years, the guy that asked Raqib how old he was, you know, everyone has something to learn from everyone, and they all develop bad habits. And through these graphs, we can say, okay, well, this is where you kind of are, and so let's make a few adjustments. Can I change something? Can we do something a little bit differently, whether it be changing the route or changing the computerized application system, or let's talk about it in the morning and see if we can change it and make everything better for the driver, a little bit more productive, and move forward with it. Even though we've come a long way. I mean, we started years ago, like most everyone, with sand and have moved towards salt into liquids, and then into these fancy plows and computers in our trucks, multiple computers. I think at this point we have 5 or 6 different computers in our trucks that the guys can operate, or we can pull information out of it at any time. But even with all this information, there's more we can do. There's which Rob is allowing us to move forward, and he's very proactive in allowing us to do these things. So, but there's always more we can do to become more sustainable, and to not only help ourselves, but to reach out to other people and help them build a foundation and build up into a sustainable program.
So here's a crazy example of all that can be done. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Sure. So we've pretty much got everything nailed down. We've got the big trucks. We go in that have got all these computers in them, and we know what they're doing, and we've got liquid we go out and spread on the road. We make our own brine, and we've got all those processes kind of figured out. But there's always been those few trucks that have been like the unicorn that we couldn't, they're essential for doing our intersections and our dead-end roads, but there was really nothing. They were a necessity, but they were really inefficient. They were these cheaper sanders. You slide them in, they go and do the product, they dispense the product, but there's no way of really measuring it. So with Raqib's help, we're actually going to, he has developed a system where it's very non-invasive, where it's going to actually mount to the original controller, and it is going to control through ground speed what these trucks are out, and then relay back to his website, his hub, his app. And with this, we should get accurate information, because these trucks are responsible for 25% of all the salt we put out. So if we can get a handle on these and reduce the number in these trucks, we're going to see a significant decrease in our chloride levels.
So in summary, these trucks are very efficient in the sense that they cost less to operate. You can relatively use a less experienced operator. But one thing that I was always told is that you cannot control your rate because you're relying on a human being to adjust rates as you go faster, slower. So this summer we came up with an idea of why don't we replace the human thumb and a finger with a small motor instead. So the motor just essentially turns based on ground speed, and the driver doesn't have to do anything about it. So we'll see how it goes. Again, it's this leap of faith. If this doesn't work, we're going to try something else. It's this process of continuous improvement, keep trying new things.
It takes a lot out of the driver's hands that are half asleep, sitting at a stop sign, forget to shut the conveyor off. And they turn around, they got a mound of salt in the intersection.
Exactly. So this, we actually had Rob's blessing to try things out that are a bit of a leap of faith. If they work, great. If they don't work, you go back and you try something else. That brings me to the most important part of the initiative as far as the town of Lake George is concerned. It is their commitment to progress, to doing the right thing. Rob and I, we've been working closely. One thing that I like about Rob is that he's very hands-on. So you can't just explain something to him and expect that he's going to be okay with it. He wants to see it. He wants to try and break it. He wants to be involved fully. So this year, Rob's taken it on him to personally do everything that the town needs to do to become a leader in liquids. And I'm going to let Rob talk a little bit about what is it that they're doing and what are the potential issues that we may see, and how is it that he's got a plan to essentially address those in baby steps. So, Rob.
I'm Rob Lanfear, Town of Lake George Highway Superintendent. Rob Vopleu and I work hand in hand with sustainability, making brine, storing brine, tracking salt, and reducing salt usage. With the help of Raqib and the trackers and the pickup trucks to reduce human error, he came up with a regulator to go on our brine truck, so we don't have to try to maintain 15 miles an hour to get our 42 gallons per lane mile on the ground. So now we can cut back some time on pre-treating because we only have one truck to pre-treat with, and it took all day for one driver to do all of our roads. So now we can probably shorten that up.
That's huge operationally because you only have one truck right now that can do liquids. So one thing that Rob's committed to is 100% of all town roads will see, is that a pre-app?
We were pre-treating 100%.
Right. So this year it's going to stay the same. 100% of town roads are going to have liquid treatment prior to an event.
Pre-storm, correct.
So next time you see a liquid unit in the town of Lake George spreading liquid and snow is nowhere in sight, that's the pre-treat. That's going to help keep the snow from sticking. That's going to help get it plowed off easily. The real leap of faith, where I'm super excited, is that they have agreed to, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I've got 9 or 10 low traffic, fairly flat roads and around the basin. We're going to do liquid only, no granular, at the right temperatures.
Exactly. So what this means is that given the right temperature range, there are going to be certain sections in the Town of Lake George network that will not see a single grain of salt.
My comfortable threshold is about 18, 20 degrees to start for this year. If it works well, we'll expand a little bit. Like I said, we're kind of limited to equipment, but if it works well, we'll try to expand.
So it's going to be baby steps, but what Rob's looking to do is set aside. So first of all, there's going to be changes to the operation, the way the operation's done right now, so that this can be achieved, because you can imagine you've got like small sections scattered across the town that you want to keep liquid only. So it is a logistical nightmare to actually do those when you only have one truck. And those little sections are actually a part of other people's routes. So a lot of reorganization needs to be done in order for this little experiment to actually go ahead. Kudos to these guys to actually, they figured it out. They know how they're going to do it. And just for perspective, putting granular down at 250, you can reduce it to 150. But With liquid, you can actually bring the granular equivalent down to even 75. So essentially,
And liquid's going where you need it.
Where you need
It's
it.
not bouncing off the side of the road.
So there is a high likelihood that these selected sections with cameras, with monitoring, with patrolling, with these guys looking at them on a minute-by-minute basis, are going to use less salt per lane mile than any other municipal roads because we're not using salt. It's going to be liquid only, exactly where you need it, exactly how much you need it, which is huge. We don't know how well it's going to work, but it's that leap of faith. You got to keep trying new things in order to understand what works for you, what doesn't work for you. He's big on calibration. He's given Rob
Yes.
full,
We
whatever.
calibrate, Rob
Right.
calibrates once a month.
Once a month, it needs to be documented, it needs to be processed. Anyone who needs access to the resources that they've put together in-house, will be able to have access to that because they essentially want, everything that they're doing.
And keeping track of drivers' bad
Exactly.
habits and trying to correct
Exactly.
those.
So-
Our trucks, the lowest they'll go, except for his, is 150 pounds per lane mile. Our average last year was 237.
Right. With liquids, they can potentially go down to 60. So something that's even not realistically possible with the bigger trucks. So we're really looking forward to that. Again, I feel very confident that the town's commitment to making baby steps in order to learn, push the envelope a little bit at a time. And our goal is that whatever we start today as an exercise, we want to have implemented mainstream in how long do you think?
4 years.
4 years. So baby steps, we
And
learn.
we'll learn what roads we can use them on and what we can't.
Exactly. So liquids or no other thing is going to be the absolute answer, but the goal here is to learn and keep adjusting, keep improving things as we go. So we really appreciate, it was a bit of a logistical nightmare to be able to achieve this just because these roads are scattered everywhere with one truck, limited staff, even more limited experienced staff. I think this is huge, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with you how we do with these liquid-only routes.
And every event, Rob and I are together, should we or shouldn't we?
Exactly.
Should we or shouldn't we? It's really on the fine line of temperature-wise, and it's, 11 o'clock, we got a 4-hour window to try to pre-treat. But we have played around with a quarter of an inch of snow in the parking lot. and
Right.
It worked well.
Right. So this is really exciting. Hopefully next year we will be able to share with you on how some roads in the town saw absolutely no granular at all and were 70% less salt than they would typically be. So not just 20%, 30%, less than half. So I really appreciate it. Guys, this is a leap of faith, but I think you guys are the right team to do it, and looking forward to working with you. Right. Well, that's all we have.
Thank you, everyone. I don't know. We have a couple questions. Don't think you're going anywhere. Even though you've gone over time, Tim, we're going to keep you there.
I'm feeling bad.
But thank you, guys. A couple questions first from the online folks. From Benny, I think this was towards you, Tim. What liquid pre-treat are these guys talking about? What product are they using?
Liquid pre-treat, basically it's we're making our own brine right in-house. We've got our own brine maker. So we're taking sodium chloride, thank you. We're taking rock salt and we're converting it into liquid state, 2.3 pounds to achieve a granular rate in a liquid.
And second, from Joanna, have you had any complaints from residents with brine corroding their cars? I don't know, any of you?
Yes,
Yes, you have?
because they don't know what it is. It's salt, just less percentage. It will rot the cars just as much as granular will. It's the same product, just in liquid form.
Just as much, or would it be less maybe, because it's less?
It's less, but they need to stay 500 feet back instead of riding right up on the trail. Otherwise, your
As I
windshield
know,
wipers.
following these guys over Tongue Mountain, I stay way
Otherwise,
back.
your windshield wipers won't be there in the morning.
Okay, any questions in-house?
So It sounds like your long-term goal is to eliminate using salt on the roads. It's great for the environment. I also want to remind everybody, I think it'll save our roads and our bridges too as well. So hats off to all of you up there. You're doing a great job, and keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about sand and sand salt. A lot of people feel that sand provides traction. So I'm interested in the concept of brine, and a couple of you gentlemen have talked about not using sand or looking to eliminate salt. But what about the sand? Can you make any comments on that?
Tons of comments.
Yeah, I'll stick my neck out there. It's been chopped off before.
Get it?
I will mix sand in with our salt during an ice event. I want our trucks coming back and our guys safe. We got fire and EMS to worry about, as well as school buses. So not on every road, but on our steeper ones, I will send trucks out with a salt sand mix. Very rare straight sand, but there's been times where it's froze right over top. It's been so cold where you had to go right back over it with some sort of friction material.
So, okay, that's what I needed to know. And then on private, I know you don't do private roads or anything like that.
No.
But as far as the sand, when you're mixing it, it's sand with salt?
Generally, yes, because it'll freeze in the truck if not.
Do you do both? Do you do sand, salt, and then maybe are you pre-treating with brine?
We do, that's the general practice. What we started with was just a pre-treat with brine. But that's only good for the first round of plowing. So there's no bond to that road.
Thank you.
Just one quick comment. Me first. So I've been doing this about working with snowplow operators, municipalities, towns, private contractors about 10 years. There are two cases in which these guys do deserve a free pass or a get out of jail card or whatever you want to call it. One is slopes, and the other is freezing rain. Because the 10 years that I've been doing this, looking at it from a scientific/technical standpoint, there is no recipe that will get you out of a slippery situation when it comes to freezing rain, and there is no recipe that will get you out of an unsafe situation when it comes to slopes. You have to know your roads, you have to know your equipment, you have to know your limitations and make an active decision. The goal is to keep trying new things so that you can do things better. I don't think salt's going to be out of the equation for the next 10 years. I don't think sand's going to be out of the equation for the next 10 years. Goal is to take baby steps and see where we can do better. We're already only 7 minutes over, so
All right, so I might as well go for it.
All right.
Sand, just like salt, is a solid. It absorbs, so it takes away. We found when pre-treating before an ice storm comes in, 100 pounds of lane mile we put down to rock salt because as that rain comes down, it acts like a brine. It prevents the bond. So we're not pre-treating with a liquid. People are like, they're going out there and they're putting down salt before it's even freezing rain. Because when that comes down, it hits that rock salt and it turns it into brine, and it prevents that bond. So by the time we get out there and the storm starts, we go over it with those live edge plows. We're able to stay on top of that preventative measure for worrying about slippery slopes. Those live edge plows go right over it. And again, I've been in situations where I've slid 0.2 of a mile and spun my truck around and put it 6 feet in the air, all because of ice. I no longer use chains. I use a studded tire. By doing the pre-treat with the rock salt during wet and ice events, and the live edge plows, a combination of everything, and understanding the science and how it all works, the preventative measures that we're using is working. There are some incidents where we still use sand, and it's on our dirt roads. Dirt roads you don't even want to touch with this, so I'll just keep that nice ice pack because that'll just eat right through, create more potholes, create more damage. Over time, you learn when and when not to. I'm talking to other towns, when they use their sand, when they're in a colder climate, they won't even break out a chloride until the temperature comes up enough to where they're worried about it. So yeah, there are different times when, yes, you can use an abrasive sand for traction and times when you don't.
Time
Public
for,
safety is
Number one.
number one. And trying to reduce salt, it's a fine line
Yeah.
to try to maintain.
I just want to make one quick comment. I can't thank you enough for, we've heard leap of faith from Raqib multiple times here. I look at leap of faith differently. It's leadership. And what you guys stand for and embody is leadership. And hats off to all of you. What you're doing really is showing the way. And boy, we need that leadership more than ever. So thank you.
one more question, or maybe two more? Maybe two.
How many miles do you guys have?
We have 110.
We have 30 center lane, so it's about 63.
Take one more and then go to a break.
You guys experimenting with any alternatives to salt, like sugars or anything like that, for treating?
Please don't give them ideas.
Well, you got me excited. So I mean, are there? Any, I can just see putting salt down there. The deer will love you.
Actually, it's funny you mention that because that's actually what our company does. We sell premium de-icing materials that can assist, and you can help cut down your granular usage even more. And we actually sell liquids that can help enhance the brine to give you a window that's gonna make it so you can put that brine down even when, I know you had said earlier, Rob, your comfortable temperature is 18, 20 degrees. Some of the liquids that you can add to it can actually help you get closer to the
zero.
to 5-0 realistically.
What's the environmental impact on
Well,
those?
that's the thing you have to ask about it, and there are environmental impacts to everything. There are many liquids where if you start to factor in BOD and COD levels, some are better than others, so there's always going to be something to look at when it comes to that. But there's definitely liquids out there that can help you enhance your salt brine applications with doing minimal impact. Ultimately, we want to make sure less chlorides are getting put down. So by having a premium product in there, it's going to help out with your application rates, keeping them lower and keeping less chloride going into the environment.
Tim, we'll give you a chance in a while, but thank you for that. Thank you up here. Thank you, guys. You're our local heroes. Thank you, Raqib.